Enterprise Security Services, Security in the Cloud Age. My name is Matthias Kämpfer with SAP. You're in the session Dev 105, and we have to cover a lot of topics. So let us jump right to the agenda. I will start with an introduction that you understand how enterprise security services fits to the overall strategy of SAP. After that, we will walk through the 4 pillars of enterprise security services. In the end, I will do a short summary of all what we learned. And with that, let's move to the next slide. Intelligent enterprise. I hope you saw this picture already because it is our main slide on intelligent enterprise. On the top, what you can see is your business process. That's your business process across all your functions in your company. Normally, you're having a kind of business network. You see it on the top, and there you are working together with partners to deliver your services or goods. This business process layer is supported by applications. On the left-hand side, there's the intelligent suite. On the right-hand side, you can see the industry cloud. All this is surrounded by experience management and sustainable management. All that is then again powered by the technology, the business technology platform. And there we are. There's also the enterprise security services. And about that we will talk. So what is it about? Enterprise security services by SAP. The core of everything is the identity. It is the identity of the business user. And a business user, of course, what he wants to do is he wants to authenticate. And if a user wants to authenticate, he has also to be provisioned. So that's the core of everything. The second layer is about secure development services. That are services SAP is providing you if you are developing your own applications on top of SAP Cloud Platform. So we're providing things like authorization service, customer domain, credential store, best practices, and so on. What's important here, this is not about how you develop secure code. Things like how do I prevent SQL injection or cross-site scripting. No, this is about services we provide you so you develop your own nice and secure applications on the platform. The next one is risk and compliance. I know it's not the most loved topic within the developer community, but it's really important because it's about protecting your businesses, and we will talk later about that. And at the top, it's the last and the 4th pillar. It's about insight. That is about that you understand how SAP is handling your data, and that you're also getting some insight on what's happening to your data if you're running your SAP systems on a hyperscaler like AWS or Google. That are the 4 pillars. And what we are doing now is we will walk through each of that pillar. Let's start. Let's start with identity services. We see it here. We are now at the bottom. And on the left side, on this picture, you see SAP Cloud Identity Services, and it consists out of 2 components. The first component is identity authentication, and the second component is identity provisioning. On the right side, then, you see the business user. So the business user, what he wants to do is he wants to access the cloud application or any on-premise applications. What is also very often the case is you can see at the bottom, there is a kind of corporate identity management system. So identities are not something new to you because now there's the cloud. You had this topic already in your on-premise landscape. There you have perhaps an SAP identity management system, or you have here an Azure, Microsoft Azure Active Directory server. So what is now SAP Cloud Identity Services about? It's about 3 things. First of all, it's about authentication. It's about the authentication of a business user. And that's very important. We are talking regarding SAP Cloud Identity Services only about users, end users. and not about system-to-system communication. The second one is provisioning. So depending on the type of solution, but most solutions, or let us say 90% of the solutions, require some kind of user master data. So you have to maintain user master data like a first name, last name, email address, and so on within the application. In ABAP, it would be transaction SU01. And what you want to do, of course, is you want also to provision that all that information to the applications so you don't have to do it manually. So that's the second step. And the third step is all about integration. Integration with your corporate identity management system. And there are two types of integrations. The first integration is regarding authentication. So the question, who will be the instance in the end issuing the security token? The security token which is required to access to a system. Is that SAP Cloud Identity Services or a third-party solution? And the integration in case of identity provisioning. Here the question is, okay, where are my master data and how I get this data now also in the cloud? I will talk on the next slide a little bit more in detail on that. We are there already in the section Secure Development Services. And here we are talking about applications which you are developing on SAP Cloud Platform. And I try to provide you here a simple example. Perhaps it's simpler to understand via this example what kind of services we provide and how you can use them. On the left side, you can see again the business user, most important one. Then there's SAP Cloud Platform and SAP Cloud Identity Services. We just learned about that. Right beside it, you find custom application. That's the green one, the green box. So that's your application. It's perhaps an SAP UI5 application. And below you see there's some boxes that are then your microservices. And that microservices include your different business logic, each within a microservice. So the first thing is that SAP Cloud Identity Services, you want to integrate that with your corporate identity provider. So the business user logs on or want to log on to your application. And then the question is, okay, how you want to integrate. And since every system landscape of all our customers are a little bit different, we provide you here a lot of options. The first option how to integrate is the following. The first option would be very simple. You just synchronize the data in your corporate identity provider via the provisioning service to SAP Cloud Identity Services. Then there are all data available and you can log on then, and SAP Authentication Service issues then the token which is used to authenticate against your application. That's the first option. The second option is that you don't synchronize the credentials itself, so that SAP Cloud Identity Services, Authentication Service, always checks your credentials, which are typed in by the user, against the corporate identity provider. The next option is, what you can also do is, if there is an authentication request from a business user, you can define very clear rules. And depending on that rules, you just forward the complete authentication request to the corporate identity provider. We call this also proxy mode. So then in this case, SAP Cloud Identity Services is just a proxy. It just forwards the authentication request to a third-party solution. And there's the fourth solution and the last one, but it's not really an integration on the back-end level. It's more an integration on the end user device, on the business user side. So if a business user logs on in the morning on his Windows PC and he types in user and password, what he gets back from Microsoft Active Directory is a kind of Kerberos token. And that Kerberos token, which is then available on the user device of the business user can be used to log on to SAP Cloud Identity Services. So you take this Kerberos token, it will be transformed into an SAP Nego token, and then you can log on to SAP Cloud Identity Services. So that works. And you have here 4 options, that's a lot. Okay, now we learned, okay, the user or the business user is able to access your custom application. And then there is the next service, there is the authorization service. And the authorization service provides additional information on authorizations. So the first step was authentication, who am I? And the next one is the authorization service, what I can now really do in the application. On a technical level, it's just an OAuth 2 server. So this authorization service issuing OAuth tokens. Now you perhaps think, okay, let's wait. We have here already a token on the left side. Why again a token? And how that all works together. So that's simple. So on the left side, we are working with the standard, or often with standard XAML. On the right side with OpenID. And what happens behind the scenes, you don't recognize it. If a business user logs on via SAP Cloud Identity Services, this token will be used this XAML token to authenticate against the authorization service. It will be transferred into an OAuth token. And with that OAuth token will be then enriched with additional authorizations information. It's also called scopes. And then you have your token. And this OAuth token is then used for authentication from your microservice to another microservice. So it's often the case that you need a kind of system-to-system communication or microservice-to-microservice communication. And there you're working with OAuth. Next step, it's not unusual that you want to have some additional information from your on-premise systems. You want to display it in your application. So I took here at the bottom, you see it, SAP S/4HANA. And there is a kind of data interface where you can get the data. And the nice thing here is now that we are providing principal propagation. And that means that it is possible that the user logs on to your application and requests then data from an S/4HANA system, but this is done on behalf of the user. So no technical user. The user will be authenticated against S/4HANA, and we will take the authorizations which are maintained in S/4HANA for that user. That's very important. You're designing and you invested a lot into your permission concept of S/4HANA, and of course you don't want to destroy it. So with this principal propagation, the user will be authenticated in the system-to-system communication, and it will be used the permissions of the end user. So a nice feature. Again, behind the scenes, you don't see it. SAP S/4HANA is based on an ABAP server, and an ABAP server, I don't know what the service should do with OAuth 2 token. So what we are doing here is, for authentication reasons, we'll convert again the token to an X509 certificate for authentication. But the nice thing is that is coming with a platform. So you don't have to take care. That's all done behind the scenes. Administration. So the left side was more about the runtime. And of course, there's also the administration part on SAP Cloud Platform. We are providing here you a credential store, and there you can save technical users and passwords. You can also store there a key, so a private key for authentication. So that's your secure storage for credentials. And the next thing is the authorization and trust management. Let's start with authorization management. So authorization management, what you are doing here is you are configuring the authorization service we just spoke of. So there you can define the scopes and setting the the alignment of the scopes. So that is your configuration plane, let's call it like that. And secondly, there is the trust management. And in the trust management, there you can define which identity provider you would like to trust for authentication. In our case here in the picture, it is SAP Cloud Identity Service. So perhaps your productive tenant you got from SAP. The next one is customer domains. And that's not a pure security topic, but I just wanted to mention it here because custom domains comes automatically with certificates to enable HTTPS. So just for information. And the last services is audit log. And audit log is filled automatically by SAP. So here in the picture, we have SAP Cloud Identity Services, we have authorization service, we have a runtime itself. And what they are doing is they're writing log information and they are stored in audit log, and the customer, so you can then retrieve that data. One thing you have to take care of is that audit logging is, it's not possible that you are writing data to audit log. So your custom audit information. So that is currently written purely by all the different SAP services, but we plan to open this up also to custom audit log information. So I guess this is not coming this year. It should come hopefully the next year. SAP Cloud Application Programming Model. This is the next topic. The next topic, and we are still in the area of secure development services. If you look at this picture, at the top, there are front ends. And what developers are expecting is that they have a choice what they want to use. So there are the front ends. So for example, we of course recommend SAP Fiori. There's also things like Angular, React, and so on. Then there are environments where you want to run it on, like Cloud Foundry, like Kubernetes, like XSA, or perhaps locally on your PC. At the bottom, there's a question, where do you want to store the data? Within SAP HANA or a Postgres SQL, perhaps you develop locally, so it's an SQLite perhaps. And on the left side, there are the tool sets. So there is, for example, the SAP Web IDE, Eclipse, VS Code. So I said at the beginning that customers expect this freedom, but there are also a lot of developers who say, okay, dear SAP, I am a business developer. I want to develop a business application. I don't want to have all the choices. Please tell me what SAP is recommending. And that is what SAP Cloud Application Programming Model is about. It gives you a best practice, what we recommend, what to use when. Part of that Cloud Application Programming Model is also core data services. And you know it perhaps from SAP HANA. And if you're looking at there at the picture, so the picture below, on the left side, there are the files where you describe what you want. That's your design time. And then we process that information. And depending on what, for example, what runtime you choose or what persistence you choose, like is it a HANA database or is it SQLite, we then create an SQL DDL file or a HANA DDL file. So that's a nice thing. You are describing the stuff independent of how you will run it later. And you can, of course, then change also later where you will run it on. Yeah, so you will perhaps start with SQLite on your local PC to try it out. And then perhaps you asked you, okay, where is now the security part? And there it is. And that is a new part of it, of the Cloud Application Programming Model. And what is now new is that you are able to design security during the design time. In the past, the developer had this kind of security checks or permission checks within the code. So there was just a very simple if statement, and then, for example, checking for the authorizations. What is happening now is that a developer designs that during design time. And this information then will be injected during runtime. There we are with an example. So let us take this example. And there you see a service, and the service is called customer service. And here is the first security hint. So here you define clearly, I can only access this service if the user is authenticated. And the next thing is an entity, an order. You can also imagine that this is a kind of table. And what we're saying here, okay, I have entities, orders, and I want to restrict the access to it. So I will restrict the permissions. And I say, okay, I want to grant here read and write to admins so they can do everything. And I grant them read in the table orders, where in the column buyer, the user itself is maintained to authenticated. Perhaps a little bit complex, but if you're interested in that, feel free. You see it at the bottom. There's the link of a SAP Cloud Application Programming Model, and there you find all the examples, and you can also play around with it a little bit. And now we are already at the third topic, risk and compliance. And I would like to start with SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance. And if you're reading that name, you're perhaps thinking, okay, there's again identity, the word identity. What is, please know, the difference between this one and SAP Cloud Identity Services? So you have to understand, SAP Cloud Identity Services, what we provide here are very basic functionality regarding authentication and user provisioning. It's really basic. It should work. It should be simple and reliable. And that we achieve with SAP Cloud Identity Services. And with SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance, we are adding enterprise capabilities like segregation of duties. You know it perhaps from SAP Access Control, or access analysis and role design, that you have some role mining capabilities and you design the roles across your company. Or self-services, many of our customers also say workflows, so a user can request additional permissions. And compliant user provisioning process. As an example, hire to retire, that if somebody, if a new employee is maintained in success factors, then automatically a user will be created in a compliant way, as one example. So that is SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance. And also, if you're looking in the market there are a lot of ID as a service solutions. With SAP Cloud Identity Services, we don't want to compete in that area. We don't want to have a full-blown SAP ID as a service solution. We have a lot of parts of it, but that is not our goal. It is a simple and a secure service. And we're providing additional enterprise capabilities, often very SAP specific, like segregation of duties with SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance. And if you're reading here again, the user provisioning, we have this already with SAP Cloud Identity Services. The good news is SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance just reuse the same provisioning engine than SAP Cloud Identity Services. So we are working together. It is the same. So it is integrated, or it is part of SAP Cloud Identity Services. The next one is SAP Cloud Platform Data Retention Manager. So if you are buying, for example, S4, you are used to that you're getting automatically capabilities regarding data retention. That is already part of S4. But what is if you're developing your own application and then you have to think about, okay, there's the GDPR rules, and I have to think about data retention. And that is what this service is about. It is about managing your data retention times of your customer applications, not the solutions by SAP. There you get it automatically normally. This is for your application. And the next one, SAP Customer Data Cloud. And if we go again through the capabilities, you see for registration as a service, delegated orchestration, self-services, and so on, you also think again, oh, where is now again the difference to SAP Cloud Identity Services? And that's also again simple. SAP Customer Data Cloud is about to manage the identities of your customers. And SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance is more about your employees. It's about business users. So that is the differentiation. With SAP Customer Data Cloud, what you want is you want to know, better know your customers. And what the customer wants to do is he wants to decide what kind of data he wants to give you. And that is what we are providing here in a self-service way to manage all that decisions done by customers. So that's the differentiation. I put it here also on the right side. So just keep in mind, if it's about your the identities of your customers, think about SAP Customer Data Cloud. By the way, it's based on our Gigia acquisition. I don't know when it was some time ago. And SAP Cloud Identity Services and SAP Cloud Identity Access and Governance is about business user. There we are. Let's jump to the next one. And the next one is Insight. And that is about Insight, how, for example, SAP is handling your data. Let's start with the left side. SAP Data Custodian. And that helps you to understand what happens to your data if you decide to run normally your S4 or SAP Business Suite. If you would normally decide to run it on a data center, but switch now to an hyperscaler, so an infrastructure as a service vendor like AWS or Google. So if you decided to switch just the hardware layer, then SAP Data Custodian helps you to understand what happens to your data regarding data placement, movement, and access control. Exactly for this space, SAP Data Custodian is designed. There's another topic, and you don't see it on that slide, and it is very important. It's just, it's not completely available. But if you are interested into KMS, Central Key Management Services, so that you are able to define what key is used also by SAP or by a hyperscaler. If you want to define that key, SAP Data Custodian probably will provide something here in the near future. So check this topic out if you are interested into KMS, Central Key Management, sorry. And on the right side, there is the SAP Trust Center, and there you find information how SAP is handling your data and what is the status of all the cloud systems in the cloud. So are they available or not? What is about data protection, compliance, and so on. It is just a public website. So you can just Google it, SAP Trust Center within Google, and then you will find that place to get this information. Then I want to summarize that again. Enterprise security services by SAP, the core of everything is the identity of the business user. It's about authentication and provisioning. Then there is secure development services. This is all about if you are developing your own applications, your custom applications on top of SAP Cloud Platform. We're helping you to decide what kind of tooling to use, We help you with authorization, with connectivity, with user propagation. The next layer is risk and compliance with SAP Cloud Platform, Retention Manager as one example, or identity access governance. And we concluded with insight, so that you are knowing what's happening to your data if you choose to go to the cloud. On the right side, you see, of course, there are a lot of security partners out there, and they are providing additional services. And on the left side, there is hybrid identity and access management. There is an own session on it. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I just want to give you some remarks on that, because of course, most customers are running hybrid environments and not pure cloud environments. And all what I showed you was about cloud. And if you're talking about hybrid identity and access management, on-premise, there are 3 solutions: SAP Access Control, SAP Single Sign-On, and SAP Identity Management. If you are used to SAP Access Control, then the solution which fits in the cloud best is SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance. That's also from the same team. And we are providing here a bridge, or it is called bridge, that you can integrate your governance from on-premise to the cloud. SAP Single Sign-On. SAP Single Sign-On is the unique solution which is able to support a single sign-on for SAP GUI. And SAP GUI is something which is very often used in on-premise landscapes. In cloud landscapes, where we are talking normally about web-based access via the web browser, but on-premise, SAP GUI is really strongly used. And the integration here between SAP Single Sign-On and SAP Cloud Identity Services in most cases is not on the backend side. It is more on the client side, so on the computer side. So most customers just reuse the Kerberos token for SAP Single Sign-On to access via SAP GUI, the business application, and reuse the Kerberos token to authenticate via SAP Nico to SAP Cloud Identity Services. So that is a very simple and easy integration. SAP Identity Management, the pardon in the cloud is SAP Cloud Identity Services, provisioning service. And here you have to decide how you want to manage your data. So both solutions, SAP Identity Management and SAP Cloud Identity Provisioning Services, provide some kind of logic engine to make your customer specific, or to meet your customer specific requirements, like transformations and so on. So both solutions can do it, but normally it doesn't work really good if there are 2 brains working on the same stuff. So most customers will use SAP Identity, or who want to still use SAP Identity Management. What they do is they extend it to the cloud via SAP Cloud Identity Services provisioning. We are providing here a kind of, it's called again proxy mode. So you can just give via SAP Identity Management clear tasks to SAP Cloud Identity Services what to do. So you can say, please provision the user ABC to S4 as one example. So you, in the proxy mode, the brain of SAP Cloud Identity Service is just not used anymore. Okay, with that, more information. So there are, of course, more sessions at TechEd. So one good one is the first one, the Dev 106. It's Managed Identity Lifecycle with S/4HANA and SAP Cloud Identity Services. I think it's from my colleague in Bulgaria. So that's really a good one. And there are more and more also in the data area and intelligent enterprise. So just read it through if you're interested in security. Here are some tips what you can use. And please use TechEd, this new format, to continue your learning experience in 2020. Here some information, what you can do, what could be your next steps. So with that, that's already the end of that presentation. Thank you very much and enjoy TechEd and stay healthy. See you soon. Bye.